Welcome to the Scarlet Project. This is the show about the slimy underbelly of American colleges and universities, the predators that thrive there, and the administrations that tolerate them. I'm your host, Tom, and I'm joined by my good friend and co host, Ryan.
Thanks for coming back, guys, and tuning in.
Today, we are capping off a 3 episode run on CCSU, Central Connecticut State University, with a roundup of creeps from campus past. We're going to go over the CCSU subjects we've covered either on this show or in print while we were students or working journalists and update you on where they are now. This episode is going to illustrate one of the main themes of this show, which is that even when these predators do get caught, the consequences, to the degree that you can call them consequences, are so minimal and the whole thing is kept so hush hush that it's easy for them to just move on as if nothing ever happened. Meanwhile, the survivors are left with the scars. Without further ado, let's stare into the abyss together, my friends. So usually I would do a little section here about who our subject is for today, but since there are so many, I think me and Ryan are just going to take turns going over a subject, describing what they did and where they are now. So Ryan, you have the honors of perhaps my favorite subject for today's episode.
I would say my favorite subject of these past couple episodes because, as our listeners might remember, this person has basically not been at the center, but been involved in all these cases in one way or another, being complicit or just yeah. And it's none other than I don't want to keep you guys waiting any longer. CCSU's former chief diversity officer, Rosa Rodriguez. And there's a quote that is found a little bit after the theater scandal that had happened that we talked about in the previous episode, where Central basically had an outside source look at it, look at the situation, look at the office where she was the chief of, and find out what was wrong with it. And so I'll just read this quote now about our good friend Rosa. The report outlined concerns that Chief Diversity Officer Rosa Rodriguez and her predecessors were, quote, not welcoming or friendly, and in some cases intimidating and or lacking follow-through. The article goes on to say, investigators said that the office failed to interview those who filed formal reports against theater faculty members, adding that the office was not satisfying the crucial function of receiving, investigating, and addressing complaints. So you're probably wondering, clearly she wasn't good at being a chief diversity, officer. Sorry, I don't want to get her title wrong. She clearly was not a great chief diversity officer for, university. So what could she have gone on to do then? Because she was obviously let go from Central. Well, Tom, I'm happy to let you know that Rosa Rodriguez actually has the same exact position at Century College, which is in White Bear Lake, Minnesota. So she's just moved across the country and is doing the same exact thing. And certainly she's learned from her mistakes,
Yeah, that fucking rules, man. Like, good for her. She's an inspiration because it shows that if you are completely negligent at your job to the point in where you fail a group of young women so badly that they end up scarred for life, you too can just move on and get the same job somewhere else and probably make more money. Hold on, let me look this up real quick. I need to know how much she makes.
And I want to just reiterate while Tom is looking up Rosa's current income, which is public record, of course. Rosa wasn't one of the predators that we discussed in this story. She wasn't committing sexual assault on anyone, but in that same regard, her role is so much more important in why these stories were even possible. just being complicit in, you know, students thinking they can confide in someone and be safe with it, and instead just at every single stage, at every single door, just getting shut down or led astray or just not being really responded to at all. And I'm not. It's hard to compare uh, just evil doings in my own words, but Christ, if she was not, complicit in this happening so many times indirectly.
Yeah, I mean, like, imagine something so awful like that happening to you, and you go to the person you're supposed to go to for help to tell and have them do something about it, and she's just like a bitch to you
Yeah.
and is like tries to like intimidate you. Like, holy fucking shit. Okay, so she makes $4,444.44 bi-weekly. So let's do the math on that real quick. 4 bi-weekly. So what's 52 divided by 2? That's what is that?
26.
26. Thank you. So $115,555 a year. Hell
For the
yeah,
listeners at
Rosa.
home, I will never make anything close to that amount of money in my life.
No, 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 no. So she
I could do
failed.
what she does. I mean, I
Yeah,
couldn't from a moral standpoint, but
she failed so incredibly hard. Like that report was just completely brutal and devastating, like a reflection on her. And yeah, all she had to do was, do they not like Google her fucking name? Like
that's
when
what I
they were
mean.
hiring
Like her
her?
name isn't John Smith. Like,
Like, because it would have shown Rosa Rodriguez fucking sucked at her job. And
like I was saying earlier, I have it pulled up here. I think just in the student newspaper reportings about the whole theater department scandal, she's mentioned in like literally every single article.
because she was right there, man.
Right.
She was at the fucking, epicenter of where the shit happened, where the rubber met the road, where these students
How
were
do you
supposed to
fail
go.
upwards that long?
I know she's not even a white male. She still managed to do it. I guess props to her,
I guess.
right? Fuck you, Rosa, if you're listening.
Mm-hmm. From the bottom of our hearts.
All right, so of course I get stuck with the fucked up name to pronounce. Mihai Balastinu? Balastinu? Whatever.
Sure.
So this dude, so in 2019, it was revealed by the recorder. Let's go. Student papers. So he was what was he, a math professor? That's what it was, right? So yeah, I think he was a math professor, and he was actually a finalist for Central Connecticut's Excellence in Teaching Award. He was found to have made, quote, unwelcome romantic and sexual advances towards a female student, according to an investigative report by the university's Office of Diversity and Equity from June 2018. So the report stated that CCSU Mathematical Sciences Associate Professor, Mihai, whatever, subjected to a student in the department to unwelcome romantic advances and inappropriate sexual contact, or inappropriate physical contact, sorry, as well as inappropriate questions about her sexual experiences. All right, so the advances allegedly began at an event in October of 2017. The student claims in the report that Balastenu repeatedly returned to her table at the event and made physical contact, and at one point asked her and her friends, who were all below legal drinking age, if they were going to a bar afterward. This is a quote from the student. He was just like sitting really close or like standing really close and touching me on the shoulders and arms and stuff. I didn't think anything of it then because he was very close and personal with people. However, the advances persisted, the student said. In December of 2017, while driving her home from a graduation dinner because she didn't have a ride, the student alleges that Balastenu hugged and kissed her on the cheek. The student said Balastenu also stayed in the car for so long that her mother became concerned, according to the report. The next day, the student said Balestanu insisted she go to lunch with him and two other math department faculty members, despite her initially declining. Though she assumed she wouldn't be alone with Balestanu, he ended up driving her to the restaurant and back to campus. While they were together, the student said Balestanu turned the conversation in the car sexual, asking if she felt, quote, guilty about premarital sex, unquote, because her religion is Catholic, and telling her that he did not like that Catholicism is, quote, really strict about sex. That's the thing he doesn't like about Catholicism. Eh, Um,
Yeah, so do the priests.
no mention. He made no mention of that though. This is another quote from the student. Quote, then he asked me, do your parents think you're a virgin? Are you a virgin? Do you think you could get birth control without your parents knowing? I felt weird because it was just us in that car, the student said. During that car ride, the student said in the interview that Balestino also asked her about her experience with being catcalled and whether the men doing it, quote, think she's just gonna go up to them and take all their clothes off and be like, fuck me, fuck me. This is a quote from the student. He said it like 8 times and he was like yelling it. That was probably when I was the most uncomfortable. He kissed her on the cheek again when dropping her off at CCSU after lunch.
I mean, this is just all of it, not to interrupt, but it's just the most cut and dry example of someone trying to groom someone like possible.
Right. This is like the exact same behavior we've seen from, several of the subjects. It's always like the hug, the kiss on the cheek, the steering the
Hmm.
conversations towards sex. Like it's like they have a fucking playbook, man.
Right. Which makes you wonder a lot of things.
hmm You think they have like a sexual predators union?
I mean, it wouldn't be the most surprising.
Throughout the course of the advances, Balestinu frequently invited the student either to his apartment or to go out, the report states. She said she declined all the invitations except one time for lunch at his apartment during the 2017 winter break because she, quote, felt rude to say no because he's a professor. Again, this is alluding to the power dynamic we've talked about previously, where these students are in a position where they don't really feel like they could say no because this person is responsible for their success or failure within the department, within their class. During this lunch, the student recalls him talking about his ex-girlfriend growing up in a strict household like her and being, quote, sexually repressed. In January of 2018, Balestinu allegedly kissed her on the forehead and wished her a happy new year once another math professor had stepped out of the office. According to the report, he never kissed her in front of others until a birthday dinner where he gave her a big hug and kissed her on the forehead. When another professor made a comment about the hug, he hugged the student again, the report says. So just like a fucking like asshole, like on top of it all,
Totally
like,
doubled down on it. Yeah.
right? Just like I'll fucking do it again.
He's just so gross. Like I talk about someone being sexually like suppressed or repressed, as it sounds like he is. Like, is he getting off on like giving someone a forehead kiss? Like what? It's so creepy and like gross.
It's just a fucking predator, man. Just like trying
Yeah.
to like I don't know. I don't know what the fuck he's trying to do. Like obviously he's thinking like a forehead kiss like will lead to something else, like in his little
Yeah.
fantasy world where his students want to sleep with him. So Balestenu, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, and I really don't give a fuck because fuck him. He confirmed to interviewers that he hugged the student and kissed her on the cheek and forehead in the report. That same month, so this is in January of 2018, he also invited the student to go to the opera with him through text message obtained by the recorder, but the student refused. And ew, what the fuck? So oh, here's another instance of creepy behavior. While the student was wearing nail polish that changes with the temperature, the student claims that Balestinu blew on her hands, putting them partly in his mouth to see if the color change. And in a second incident in his office with the door closed, grabbed her hand and began playing with her fingers. Like, man. So this was persistent, inappropriate behavior. So in the report, it notes that he tried to mislead investigators, and it wasn't until he was confronted with the other eyewitness accounts of his behavior that um, he kind of like copped.
Like what is even it almost sounds like an Andrew Cuomo like story where he's like, I'm not perverted, it's Italian. Like, is he just
Yeah.
trying to act like it's like normal, like to do that? Or like what
I don't know.
how do you defend that?
You might be onto something. Is Balestinu? I don't. That doesn't sound Italian to me.
Yeah, I know it's kind of a reach, but
Who knows? He might be. Maybe he's Italian on his mom's side,
mhm, in spirit.
or exactly. You don't have to. You could just be Italian by spirit. You know.
What's our man? What's he up to nowadays?
Oh, I'm glad you asked. Actually, the whole thing with him leaving the university, like they couldn't like fire him. I guess, of course, like all this fucking other shit that we've covered before. So the year this was reported, CCSU President Zoma Toro wrote that the university issued a quote notice of non-renewal, which like non-renewal of his contract, I guess. But that non-renewal was overturned in the grievance arbitration. So what was the fucking like resolution to this? Did he just leave or what the fuck happened? Because he was still working there at the time of this article.
Right. Yeah, I'm surprised this one didn't have any sort of update on it, to be honest.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. Well, fuck it. Let's just say he's not there anymore. I don't know if he left on his own accord or what, but he is not there anymore. He left in January of 2020, apparently.
Of
All right,
course.
so ask me again, where is he now?
So, Tom, what's our man? What's this dude up to nowadays?
Well, he left the public sector and teaching, thank God.
Hmm.
And he now works for Travelers in Hartford as a senior data scientist, and he's been there for a few years. So
And that
that's where
is
he's
the
at.
insurance company that hosts the Travelers Golf Tournament
Oh yeah, Travelers
every year.
Championship. Yep.
Yeah, shout out to them.
Shout out.
This also is interesting, just the timing of it all, I guess, and really a lot of these kind of overlap. But this, like the report about him, literally came at the same time that Pearlstein was under an independent investigation, and was on administrative leave.
Right. And just like again, it just shows that the university absolutely does not want to reveal these things. Like this was all going on during the Pearlstein shit. Like you think there'd, I mean, I guess you wouldn't think, but it would be nice if there was some sort of transparency.
Well,
Like,
campuses and Central, if they preach about being a safe haven for students, and like
right,
that's, I would guess probably, I don't know the exact number, but a good majority of the students probably had no idea really about either of these things.
right,
If they, like how are you keeping it safe exactly?
right. Like you're keeping it a secret. And
Right.
as long as
You're
it's a
keeping yourself
secret,
safe.
right, you can't, the students can't keep, be aware of this guy and like maybe keep their distance if they don't know he's a predator.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I wouldn't really want to take a class with this guy.
Right. And they should have that information and that be able to make that choice for themselves. Like,
Hmm.
oh man, this guy's kind of creepy. I don't know if I want to be in his fucking class because who knows? Maybe I'll be the next object of his unwanted affection.
Right.
But how funny is it to think of him like while like the whole Pearlstein investigation was going on, like knowing that he was like under investigation too, he's probably pulling at that fucking collar, man, pretty hard,
He's
like,
like,
yeesh.
yeah.
And then he got. Fuck you, bitch.
Hmm.
Next.
Yeah, I would say every single person, before I get into our next subject, sincerely fuck them, and I hope they have a terrible Christmas and even worse 2024, to be honest. We're recording this to take you behind the curtain before the new year. So I hope all these people have a bad year.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
Um, but without further ado, let's get into None other than Christopher Hoyt. So Hoyt was a costuming professor with the theater department from 2015 to 2018. And really his story about, you know, what he did really only came out because of what Delventhal did, which we discussed in an earlier episode and we'll discuss again later. But basically, a theater student had reported uh, that Christopher Hoyt had made her have an uncomfortable experience. And so she reported that to Delventhal, who then decided to disclose that information to another student, um, which led to an even worse. Well, I'm not going to compare experiences, but another terrible experience. Um, Hoyt, I mean, it really doesn't get too deep into exactly what he did here. Um, but he left Central not too long, actually before this story even broke, in 2018, as I said. And funny enough, would you guess where he is?
Where is he? I want to know.
Another school, Moses Brown School, which is in Rhode Island. Um, since 2018, when he left, he's been there. He's a production manager there, so moving his way up from costuming department to production manager. Yeah, I mean,
Good for
like I
him.
said, there's not really the specifics that we have for some of the other people in this article, but yeah, fuck you.
Like Ryan said, he's at the Moses Brown School. This is in Providence, Rhode Island. And I thought about FOIing his whatever personnel file, his records. Unfortunately for us, however, the Moses Brown School is a private university, so they don't
Quaker
have to.
school.
Yeah, I don't even know what the fuck a Quaker is, to be honest. But
It's like 1600s English thing, but I didn't know it was even a thing still, so
right, so like
good for them.
I don't know what modern Quakerism is, but if anybody goes to the Moses Brown School and wants to drop a dime on Christopher Hoyt, um, hit our
So,
email box.
um, I mean, I could be off base here. Through my research, my very light research into the Moses Brown School, but there's a fun quote, um, just from there that they provided. At Moses Brown, we see and celebrate the inner light in everyone.
Sounds
How
very new
hard did you
age.
have to, yeah, like look into Christopher Hoyt to see the light? I wonder.
Oh, before we move on though, have you seen this motherfucker?
No, actually.
Oh, dude, please Google him
Okay,
and
we'll do
go
this
to images.
live on the pod.
Yeah, I gotta get Ryan's reaction live on the pod.
You're gonna have to cut some of this because there's so many different people.
You see him?
Is it the guy with the flat cap?
Yes, yes, yes. He looks like some fucking like steampunk hipster douche.
You could tell he had a chain wallet for a long
Oh,
time, like
yes.
longer than he should have.
And like a leather bracelet, like one of
100%
those thick
with
ones, you know
studs
what I'm
on it.
saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. Yes.
Yeah, this guy is like, I mean, if you want to just go to Google Images for anyone listening at home, it's the first picture. It is just about exactly what you would imagine a costuming professor to be.
Yeah, I suppose it's not surprising.
Yeah.
All right. Well, fuck you, Christopher. Moving
Moving
on.
on.
Joshua Pearlstein. You know him. You hate him. You know what he did. Don't have to go back through that. This one's kind of anticlimactic though, because that motherfucker ghosted. I have no idea
Mhm.
where he's at. Like I searched for a while, and I mean, just like his search, like if you search his name, it's just flooded with the CCSU shit. And like we said in the last episode, we did no, like we said in the theater department episode, um, that story went like international. So
Mhm.
yeah, but he's a ghost. But if you do know where he is, hit up your boys because we want to know.
Please. Yeah.
But yeah, so who knows where he's at? But fuck him.
Yep. So should we go into just another notoriously terrible person?
His partner in
Um,
crime,
yeah,
literally.
Thomas Delventhal. Yeah, I mean, literally just another theater professor who was also a terrible human being who we discussed before. Um, so what's really cool, and by cool I mean it makes me want to light myself on fire, is that Delventhal got, I think it was over 500,000, right? Or was it
Yeah,
on the nose?
it was like 507.
Yeah. So over a $500,000 from CCSU just to
Fuck
fuck
off and
off,
go away.
basically.
Yeah,
Yeah. Um, so I mean, as you could probably imagine, that can get you pretty far. Like I don't even know what I would do with $500,000.
I
That
could live off
I'm
that for a while.
Yeah, yeah, dude, a really long time. But as you could imagine, also off of that, uh, so our good friend, my good friend Tom, found his Facebook, where he promotes himself as being self-employed, um, frequent poster. So you can imagine how the self-employment is going. But yeah, so he's not up to much, I don't think.
And his posts, man, are so tedious. Like he just he posts like about like being a good person and like morality and all that type of shit. Very like, wannabe progressive type dude. It's just like, bro, like you got fucking fired for fucking sexually assaulting young girls. Like, shut the fuck up.
Like we know who you are.
Right? Like fucking, like heed your own fucking advice, man. Like,
I will say though, like for all of these people, really, if you can find any of them on social media, it's so worth it to keep a tab on them because, like, I mean, I would have to imagine that, like, just one of these days, one of them's gonna snap and like go on some sort of tirade, you know?
yeah, right. Hold on. Let's I'm just gonna look him up real quick just because
Yeah.
yeah, man, he just posts so much. Nothing good though. Nothing I can like
Mm,
nothing we could laugh at, unfortunately.
that is unfortunate.
Well, you know the
Oh,
deal.
his birthday was 3 days ago.
Oh, wow. I hope you had a shitty birthday.
Yeah, hope it's his last one.
Nice. Moving on that note. All right. So this one, we haven't talked about him before. So this guy's name is Mohammed. Another name, man. Ghanem? What would you say?
Let me
Ghanem?
look. Uh, go Gonaim, Gonaim.
Ghonaim. If anybody wants to, Google him or some shit.
Don't correct us either if you hear this, because again, I really don't give a shit about any of these people.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Please don't inbox us for this. So in June 2017, a report in June of 2017, a female student alleged that he was an adjunct professor at CCSU, had sexually harassed her on multiple occasions. According to the complaint, I'm just going to call him Muhammad so I don't have to try that last name.
Hmm.
Repeatedly made comments about her appearance, calling her beautiful and saying that she resembled his ex-girlfriend. That's something you always want to hear from your
Mm.
professor. After arriving to class late one day and missing a quiz, Muhammad instructed the student to stay after class. While alone, the professor sat next to her and commented on her resemblance to his ex-girlfriend, whom once was a student of his. Ew.
Jesus.
So I wrote this back in the day, um, but I forgot about that. That's fucking fucked up. And, quote, indicated that he would give her special treatment and allow her to make up the quiz, the report said. Upon completion of this quiz, the professor asked to walk out together. The student, already fearful of him, agreed. Once they arrived at his car, the professor gave her his cell phone number, hugged her, and suggested he walk her to her car, which was parked in a different parking lot. Once at her car, he asked for a ride back to his car. Jesus Christ. During the car ride, he touched her hair, hugged her, and kissed her on the cheek before leaving, according to the complaint.
It's these same creepy fucking things every time. Like they have calling cards.
Dude, it's right out of the fucking Sicko playbook.
Yeah.
In another interaction at his office, Muhammad shared with her the details of a sexually explicit dream he had, of which she was the subject. Quote, I dreamt you came to ask me a question after class and things got very heated. We went to the back room and I give it to you from behind. It was so real that I woke up from it like a wet dream. End quote. Ew. Jesus
Fucking
Christ.
disgusting.
According to the complaint, Muhammad also manufactured ways to get himself alone with the student. He graded her notebook from a group project last, assuring that they would be alone in the classroom together, then offering to walk her to the Kaiser parking lot where he began parking, which is the parking lot where she had been parking. So trying to put himself in the same places where she is. And it's important to note that this parking lot was further away from the building where he worked, which was in Vance, for people who are familiar with CCSU's layout. Upon arriving at his car, he asked her to get in and talk. She declined, but he pressured her. Once inside, he commented on her looks and how much he loved her body. He touched her hair and began creeping his hair to her back, then further down her back near her butt. Despite her uncomfortable body language, the professor continued until she said she had to leave, at which point he insisted she eat candy and drink water that was in his car to show that she trusted him. Man,
That's fucking nuts.
I forgot how fucking disturbing this is. She declined. Thank God.
Thank God. Yeah. Great call.
Like, yo, like how much more like predator on the nose do you have? Like, can you be, hey, eat this candy and drink this drink? Like, what the fuck, man? You
Hmm.
fucking freak. So the professor then told her how much he wanted to touch her and that, quote, he has the sex drive of a teenager because he has high testosterone, according to the complaint. He then put his hand on her inner thigh. When she attempted to leave, he put his arm around her and asked her to stay. He then asked to kiss her. She said no. He kissed her on the cheek anyway. She had to struggle to finally be able to leave the car. During the interview process, when the investigators interviewed him, he confirmed parts of the student's allegation while denying others. However, the investigators found him to not be credible, and based on the evidence, found that it was more likely than not he violated CCSU's non-discrimination and sexual misconduct policies and created a hostile learning environment based on gender and using threats, demands, or other suggestions that retaliation of one's educational status is contingent upon the toleration or acquiescence in sexual advances. So CCSU said that while they were trying to take the proper steps to terminate him, he just left the university. So when I reported this, he was working at the University of Hartford and the Community College of Rhode Island as an adjunct. They didn't really get back to me with any comments though, but I looked into him recently, and he's another one that just have no idea where he went. He probably just stopped updating his LinkedIn, and I have no idea. But as with all these people, if you know, let us know.
Please.
All right, go ahead, Rye.
So, in the same article that Tom mentioned, he foiled a bunch of these, and surprisingly enough, a lot came back. Another employee who wasn't a professor, but was actually the softball coach at CCSU. His name is Jeffrey Franquette, um, and he first joined Central in August of 2009. Um, you can still find his bio on their website today. Fun fact: he's not employed by them anymore. But so this investigation happened in April of 2014. That was found in the FOIA documents. Basically, he was just about as terrible as you could be to fellow staff members, but also his own players.
Yeah, just to interject here real quick. I mean, obviously they're all very awful. This guy was just like an absolute fucking pig, though, man.
Just
Like,
like a hound dog of just disgusting comments. Like,
and just like, well, man, he just like was insane, an insane
hmm
person.
hmm which kind of explains why his record was barely over 500, um, over 7 seasons. Like, not to, there's only 207 and 195, so it's not great. But besides the point, let's get into exactly what this scumbag did. Jeffrey Franket again, in case you guys are wondering. So in the document that was provided, it wasn't specified if this specific example is a player or employee. Um, he subjected them to, quote, severe, pervasive, and persistent unwelcome comments and actions of sexual nature. Um, he asked a female employee for sex, made sexual comments to about female athletes and employees, made inappropriate comments to female athletes about their bodies, and showed a female employee a nude picture of himself. There were 21 student witnesses interviewed for this and 12 employee witnesses. Um, yeah, and it doesn't get better the more the story goes on. I mean, we'll talk about the exact things here. Several players reported that he had made comments similar to the, message of he could bounce a coin off or bounce a cup off their butts, and told one player that she had, quote, a ghetto booty. Doesn't stop there, of course. Believe, yeah, here we go. If I was in college, this is a quote from him, reported by a player. He said, "If I was in college, or if I could, I would date redacted player's name. She's like the perfect girl."
Ew, dude.
That
So yeah, that's him
that is,
talking
yeah.
to he's talking to one player about another player, correct?
hmm
Gross.
Yeah. Like, just insane that he like this just went on, and like I think it was 7 seasons he was at Central, if I'm not mistaken. Oh no, I'm sorry. That is actually incorrect. That's just his entire coaching legacy up to this point. But it's a couple seasons. Um, like, how are you in charge of a team? Like, is there just no one checking like really anything?
Right.
And it
But
doesn't stop there either.
yeah, that's the crazy thing is just like it wasn't him just saying this to his players. He would talk like this to his colleagues as well.
Right. Right. I mean, um, like I alluded to before, uh, one employee reported that Franket once gauged her interest in having a threesome with him and his wife. Four female employees detailed at least one occasion where Franket talked about his sex life or made a comment about a sex act he wanted to do with them. And there was also rumors, so this is all, again, alleged, that Franket had an inappropriate, perhaps sexual relationship with one of his players, but investigators found no evidence of the claim. And rumored player failed to appear for an interview. Can't really say I blame them on that.
Yeah, right.
It was also reported secondhand that Franket made a comment to one of his assistant coaches that he wanted to stick it in any hole of a player's body. However, investigators were unable to interview the person who allegedly told the players about the comment and therefore could not confirm it.
Yeah, just a fucking dirty fucking pig, man.
Like, the things, like, I can't even imagine coming up in your head, like, and to say it out loud to
These are his
like,
players.
right. These are literally the people he's being paid. Not like, it's not a high school. Like, it's not where you teach and coach. Like, his only job is to be a coach,
Right.
and this is the things. These are the things he says and the things he wants to do, and that's just the thing that he said out loud. And again, so it doesn't stop there because another player said that he showed her an inappropriate photo of himself, possibly naked. So that's not, we can't really confirm that, but we already know that he showed his fellow employees naked pictures of himself. So you can take your guess on that. And I mean, yeah, I mean that was most of what the complaint got into. Uh,
So after this, though, was he fired or did he leave?
that's A great question. Um, he left. He left, and I'll tell you what he did afterwards.
What do you do?
He went on to coach at Delaware State University.
No.
Yeah.
Surely not
Um,
more young women, right? Like he was coaching men's baseball.
no, wish I could tell you that, but it's actually women's softball at Delaware State.
Wow.
Again, another profile that literally, if you just Google his name, like his old profile on the website's still there, which is not easy. It's not hard to take off a website,
But
really.
they didn't know, right? They didn't know about this, right?
Well, maybe they could argue that, but what's tough about that is in the press conference where or the announcement where they welcomed him as head coach, uh, their athletics director, D. Scott
Hines.
Doctor, yeah, Dines, said we conducted an experienced, deep search, and Jeff rose to the surface as a great fit for DSU softball.
So they didn't know, but were they ever
They did a deep
informed?
dive. Well, that's a good question too, Tom. CCSU, under their teachers union contract, just this thing we run into quite a bit here, says that they cannot share employee files. So I don't know.
Oh,
I
but
would think.
wait. I think I have this vague memory of me directly emailing like four people at the uni at Delaware State University,
Oh,
and
maybe it
I
went to
shared
their
this article
spam.
with them, didn't I? I'm pretty sure I did.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
no one ever got back to me. It's weird.
That is weird. That is
But
weird.
but after that, that was in what
That
year
was
was this published?
2014.
What year did I put
Well,
was this published? So this was in 2019, end of
2019.
2019, and he was there until July 2021.
Right.
So they knew and they
And we're
kept
not
him
really
on.
even sure if he got fired because of that or like what.
Yeah, I tried to look that up. Um, Not sure, but
They didn't
as
they
you
didn't have a
said
great
before,
record.
yeah, I was just gonna say, as you said before, it doesn't really seem like he's a great coach. Too preoccupied
Yeah,
with too preoccupied with objectifying his young female players.
correct. And yeah, so I guess after 2021 when he got fired for either being a sexual deviant to his players or just, being a bad softball coach. I'm wondering what Delaware State University would say it was for, but it's besides the point, I guess. After that, he finally hung up the cleats and said he doesn't want to, try to have sex with his players anymore. He doesn't want to be a softball coach. Now he works for a real estate agency, Family Five Homes in New Jersey. So, you know, I'm not advocating for anyone to do anything, but I mean, I know usually they list like numbers and stuff with the real estate agency. You can give him a call and see what he's up to if you want. I'm not telling you to,
Yeah, we
but
do
you can.
not we are not advising anybody to do anything like that, just to be
No,
clear. Oh, I did
I would
want
not.
to just a little behind the scenes. So because it's not exactly clear why he left or was fired from Delaware State University, I did try to FOI him. However, Delaware State University is somehow not, de despite being a public university, is somehow not subject to FOI laws from by some weird ass fucking law that they have there that specifically exempts them from
It's
FOI
crazy.
laws. Yeah. I was very shocked when I got that back. I was like, what the fuck? I never heard of such a thing.
What the hell happened there that they decided to make that law?
I don't know, but I looked into it and it's real.
Mm.
So, yeah.
I will say to correct one of my previous comments just about this. Janice Palmer, if you remember from a couple of our other episodes, um, she did say in an email that Franket was properly terminated by the university. So excuse
Oh,
me.
okay. All right. So, shall we say fuck you and move on?
Sayonara. Yep.
Fuck you, Jeff. All right, so
Hmm.
next on our list, this is we only got three more to go. Only.
Yeah. And one's the big one.
One is the big fish. But
Hmm.
moving on to the next one, Moises Salinas. I forgot what this fucking freak did, but we're gonna pull it up. Oh, this motherfucker, dude.
Yeah.
All right. So, Moises Salinas. I hope I'm saying that right. I think I am. So, this was actually reported back in 2010 when it happened, but Moises Salinas was an associate professor of psychology and Ryan was CCSU's first chief diversity officer, the person who handles all incidents of sexual misconduct on campus.
So he was Rosa Rodriguez before Rosa Rodriguez.
That is correct.
Hmm.
He was found by university counsel to have made, quote, unwelcome sexual advances on a student. The student in question alleged that Salinas asked her to go to lunch with him, and while at lunch, sat uncomfortably close to her while repeatedly touching her inappropriately. He grabbed her hand, holding it while rubbing it with his other hand, and repeatedly touched her thighs. After leaving the restaurant, Salinas made further unwelcome advances on her in his car. He again touched her thighs, then grabbed her arm to pull her closer to him and attempt to kiss her. She turned her head so his lips landed on her cheek. Salinas pulled her closer again, even though she turned her head. He managed to kiss her on the mouth and then jammed his tongue through her closed lips. Salinas tried kissing her again, but she successfully turned away so that he only caught her cheek. He then forced his hand between her thighs and slid it up to her crotch. So charges were brought against Salinas, and he pleaded no contest. So for all those due process warriors out there. But sadly, he only received just a 1 year suspended sentence and a 2 year conditional discharge with the conditions that Salinas resign from CCSU, not teach again, and leave the country. So he's from Mexico. So he went back to his home in Mexico and became the academic dean at, oh boy,
Hmm.
mm, this is where I reveal that I'm a gringo.
Hebrecia University in Mexico City.
Yeah,
I'll try it.
Hebrecia.
I was probably wrong.
No, that sounds right, Hebrecia. And he is now the rector, which is the president, essentially,
Hmm.
of the ORT University of Mexico, an institution that focuses on social justice and leadership, according to their website.
What a
He,
fitting leader.
like, wow.
And this guy, like, and I think in the original complaint, it says what this was unwelcome sexual advances on a student. Like, I'm sorry, it's a little bit more than that.
Yeah, that sounds like sexual assault to me.
Yeah. Um, and I guess maybe it's different times and how they viewed these crimes, but it's either way you look at it, it's absolutely disgusting. And I mean, just insane that this guy is leading the charge on social responsibility, entrepreneurship, and leadership in Latin
Yeah.
America.
I, I don't think they could have found someone better. I think he has all the qualifications for that. But I'm not
He
done,
also
unfortunately.
he was also big on the American Zionist movement too, according to his
Yeah, hold on,
Wikipedia.
hold on, hold on. Let's save that for last. You could do the big reveal on that, but let's save it for last.
Okay.
But not done with Salinas yet, because
Oh,
since then he had a book published by Random House. Not cool. So what else has he been doing though? Ryan, can you please tell us what type of
You're probably wondering what his politics are.
yeah, like do you have any insights into his politics?
It's funny you ask because there's a whole section of it on his Wikipedia. Um, which, side note, his Wikipedia did not mention that he was arrested on sexual assault charges. Instead, it just said he left CCSU in 2011.
Wow.
So,
Those Wikipedia moderators are slacking.
hmm, I think someone changed it though, so that's good.
Oh, who might that have been? We don't know.
Who's to say? But anyways, as you can, if you want to pull up his Wikipedia and read along at home, it's really interesting because he actually founded the Hartford chapter of the American Zionist movement. Um,
No,
yeah.
I don't believe
He,
it.
oh yeah. He was profiled in the Jewish Ledger, and was selected as one of Connecticut's Jewish movers and shakers in 2005. So thank you. Thank you, Moises. Very cool.
Oh my God, dude. Jesus Christ. What more can
Let's
you say? Besides fuck you.
fuck you.
All right, who's next on the chopping block?
Yeah. Another great question. We've got Daniel Gula. Gula?
I would say Gula.
Gula. Okay. So in 2014, a student met with Gula, who was a professor, an adjunct professor, um, on campus grounds, 5 p.m. And according to them, the sun's still out and shining bright. They met Gula in Willard Hall, which was a dormitory at one point, and then it became a classrooms. It's a weird history of that building, but besides the point, it's just a building on campus, like
Probably the
not a
shittiest
parking
building on
garage.
campus. Not important, but
Yeah, it's old, yeah, but certainly not dark, or shady or anything. Uh, and I bring that up because the student themselves said in the victim statement to the court that the location was without a doubt safe. It wasn't in a dark alley, in a dark parking lot, or a parking garage. It was on a state university campus. So obviously, before this encounter in September of 2014, the student had known Gula well enough. According to them, they spoke about Italian culture and museums and had previously met in his office, where they shook hands when she left. So you can imagine the shock, and it certainly wasn't something that she would expect to happen, for him to trap her in said office, grab her breast, grind on her buttocks, and expose himself to her. So they were meeting in Gula's office on September 15th, 2014, to discuss an event that the student had attended. Um, Gula had conveniently shut the door due to noise, at this point. But shortly after he shut the door, the conversation shifted to playing with his wedding ring, calling it shiny, shiny, pretty, pretty. Not sure if he's going for like Lord of the Rings there. Don't really give a shit. Random, either way, regardless. Uh,
I mean, it would be fitting because he's a little fucking ghoul.
Correct. He definitely looks like. Is it Smeagol's his name? Yeah, sure. Um, which the student thought like it was odd, as anyone would. And she was getting ready to leave for class at this point. Then Gula asked for a high five instead of a normal handshake, as they had done the last time she was in his office. Uh, and then shortly after that, he asked her to hug him. Um, but it was then that he squeezed her so tightly that the student heard the professor's shoulder pop. Um, According to the student in the victim statement, the hug was only a way to restrain me. And from there, it gets a lot darker. He backed her into a small corner of the room and just began to sexually assault her. And in the victim's own words, he backed me into a wall between the first desk in the room on the left and bookshelves to the right. The area felt small. I felt trapped. I remember feeling like my brain was numb and my body was numb all over. I couldn't think clear. It wasn't registering what was happening to me. It was as if my brain was on overload and wasn't connected. The more she tried to get away, the more aggressive Gula would become. according to the victim. I kept trying to pull his arms and hands off my breasts and body. He was untouched by my words to stop. He continued pulling and grabbing at my breasts. This event lasted 8 to 9 minutes, but obviously felt like it was never ending for the student. She was terrified to scream at the idea that Gula would do something else. Again, we'll take it to the student's perspective here. My thinking wasn't clear, but I was terrified and numb. If I screamed or made any sudden moves, I didn't know if he would strangle me to shut me up. His hands had been so close to my neck, I had no idea who this monster was. I had no idea what else he was capable of doing. Somehow, she finally convinced him to stop. She then escaped the room and went to class, albeit very late. He denied, obviously. I mean, she went to the CCSU police department shortly after this, to whom Gula adamantly denied any sexual misconduct, only stating that he gave her a hug. The student, or the police then told Gula that the student was not going to be pressing charges and they were looking to get the truth to close the investigation. And then he had a change of heart and admitted the assault and signed a sworn voluntary statement attesting that everything that I had just read to you and everything the student had said was true. After the interview was over, he was allowed to leave the police station. CCSU police had told the student that they had took Gula's badge and keys and fired him. The student elected to be withdrawn from her courses and was issued a refund. And of course, we're going to circle back to our old friend, Chief Diversity Officer Rosa Rodriguez, who had, done the investigation and report into Gula after this whole thing had happened. The investigation was completed and closed, and Gula resigned from his position before anything could be done, really. Yeah,
So stating that they had fired him was not true.
Right. Which is just a wild thing to lie about by the police. Do they think like people are stupid? They do.
Well, yeah,
In short,
yeah,
it's
they
a
do.
rhetorical question, but it's just a wild thing for this victim to go through the horrendous things that she went through at the hands of this guy. For the police then to confirm that it happened, have a written statement, and then to be like, don't worry, hon, we took his keys and fired him right then and there, which they really can't do, first of all.
Right, as we've already learned from previous incidents. But so what happened after that? Did he disappear off the face of the earth, or
If
did he
only, if only the Earth was so lucky. Because as I mentioned, Gula, or really just the ghoul, as I like to refer to him, resigned from CCSU. So it wasn't really like this was on his record. So where did he go? But none other than just down the road in West Hartford to the University of St. Joseph, which, for those of you who aren't aware at home, is an all women's college, or at least it was at the time. I believe it's changed in the past couple of years. So yeah, in this story, as I mentioned before, the story about this had come out in 2017. So at that point, the University of St. Joseph was like, "Oh shit," because the survivor had pressed charges.
Yeah, after
Um,
she learned that he was teaching at a mostly female university, she was like, "All right, I gotta put a stop to this,"
Fuck this
and
guy,
yeah, and press charges.
and it kind of was an open and shut case given the signed statement by him. So he was convicted of assault and given a 1 year suspended sentence and 2 years probation, and was aptly ousted at the University of St. Joseph.
Fuck you, Daniel.
Fuck you.
All right, are you ready for the big one?
The one we've all, or at least personally, I've been waiting for.
So, in 2022, a Central Connecticut State University employee sent out a mass email to the university, Senate, and state university organizations of administrative faculty alleging abuse by, drumroll please, University President Dr. Zalma Toro. I know. I can't believe it either.
That can't be. That's Omotoro.
It's the one and the same. The employee, um, Lisa Marie Bigelow, who was employed by the university for over 35 years, um, claims that she was the main target of two separate tirades by President Toro during committee meetings in the spring of 2019. So, according to the whistleblower complaint that she filed, Bigelow stated that in September 2019, during a meeting between the President's Executive Committee and the Integrated Planning Council in March of 2019, to discuss university planning and budget committees, budget recommendation for the 2020 fiscal year, President Toro began berating Bigelow, who was serving as a representative for the teachers union. After the meeting, in an email, Mark Jackson, a professor of biology at CCSU who was serving as the faculty senate representative, described President Toro's outburst as a 10 to 15-minute tirade. This is a quote. She was literally screaming about how the UPBC final report was insulting to her and the ex-con. That's the shit's like inside baseball for like the
Mhm.
administration shit, but it's like two of the two committees that were involved in this type of thing. So she went on and on about perceived insults in many different sections. There were accusations of racism and sexism beyond the motivations of the report, end quote. Despite President Toro's behavior, Jackson noted that Bigelow and her fellow representative did an excellent job explaining why each section said what it said, and mentioned that the intent of the report was to give advice, and some of that advice was negative. According to both Bigelow and Jackson's account of the events after President Toro's tirade, the meeting continued as scheduled until its conclusion 3 hours later. So Bigelow reported leaving campus that day completely traumatized, she said, by Toro's behavior. However, 5 days later, Bigelow would be in President Toro's crosshairs once again. During a regularly scheduled meeting, President Toro went off on a longer, more intense tirade than the last. Jackson estimated in his email to the Senate Steering Committee that President Toro's tirade lasted about 15 to 20 minutes, and her accusations against the committee escalated. This is a quote. This time there were accusations that the committee had conducted itself in an unethical and self-serving manner, and as a consequence, she could not trust any of the advice given by the committee. There's another quote. She said several times that she could not let this go because multiple people not from the committee had been coming to her office with derogatory information about the conduct of the committee, but she will not name who those people are or how they would know what the motivation behind the report was. So, and it's again noted that Bigelow was the main target of President Toro for some reason. So, this caused Bigelow, who said she felt frightened, humiliated, and belittled, to submit her resignation as the chair of the committee she was serving on. There's a quote from her. I had to protect myself from further bullying and abusive behavior by taking an action that would ensure my emotional well-being and prevent a third episode of her yelling at and screaming at me in front of an audience of people. So after being subjected to these tirades, Bigelow attempted to resolve the issue by reporting President Toro's behavior to the State Auditor of Public Accounts through her whistleblower complaint. However, while Bigelow was told that the APA investigation did yield findings against President Toro and that they were sent to the System Office and the Board of Regents, the report was, this is her quote, swept under the carpet, deemed too minor to be of their concern, according to her email to, she emailed like a whole listserv, so it was like a bunch of people. So Bigelow was traumatized by President Toro's alleged behavior and took a 3-month leave of absence under Connecticut's Family and Medical Leave Act. shortly after the events of the two meetings to seek treatment and recover from the abuse. But when she got back, according to her, she was only met with more bullying and intimidation. According to her email, Bigelow says she was invited to a meeting with the university's chief human resources officer, Anna Suski, man, Lęczewicz. I don't know. That's like a Polish ass last name or something. At that meeting, Bigelow was allegedly told that the university had made, quote, a business decision to relieve her of all of her professional responsibilities. This is a quote from her. It was nearly one full year before I was asked to do any university work again. During that period, came to campus every day to sit idle, counting the ceiling tiles in my office, feeling guilty I was cashing a paycheck. To use current terminology, I was quietly fired. The goal was clearly to push me to resign or retire, but I persevered, and the experience made me stronger. Additionally, according to Bigelow, she was told to immediately vacate her office in Davidson Hall and that her new office was across campus at East Hall, but her assigned parking spot was to remain in the Davidson lot. So that is just some petty ass bullshit for those who aren't familiar with CCSU's campus. I mean, that's just on opposite sides of campus. So she had to pretty much walk like 20 minutes from her parking spot to her new office in the East Hall.
Yeah, I mean that's just the opposite of like quiet quitting when you're just inconveniencing someone who is a victim obviously in this so badly that they just you force them out. Like just so gross.
Yeah. I mean, just like, I don't know. It's just like, that's such petty shit just to like move her office and keep her parking spot the same. It's like ridiculous.
Right.
But, I mean, the outcome of that was that Toro's still the president, obviously. And spokesperson for the university, Janice Palmer, said in an
Your favorite, ladies and
email,
gentlemen.
yes, the legend, she's back. She said, the allegations of abuse or misconduct are untrue and have already been investigated. Yeah, whatever. Before we wrap this, I just wanted to give some final thoughts as we close out this roundup episode and series on CCSU. In this series alone, we've covered 10 subjects, and this was based off the documents that were available to us, which only covered about an 8-year time span. Like we mentioned on a previous episode, it was CCSU's policy that they destroyed records after 10 years. So, how many cases that were investigated have been lost to time? How many victims were successfully turned away by Rosa Rodriguez or other CCSU officials? We'll never know. I do know for a fact that there's a current CCSU employee that was found to have committed sexual assault against a student, and that CCSU did not disclose that record as part of my request from when I was a student there. CCSU argued that they did not have to disclose 2 cases of sexual misconduct because they were disciplined as graduate students. Because even though one was also an adjunct professor, the claim against him came at the end of the semester when he was technically no longer an employee of the university. The second case wasn't disclosed because the assault took place in 2011 when the graduate assistant was an undergraduate. But I want to stress this. The university, after having suspended him from the campus for a year, hired him as an employee once he graduated,
After
knowing,
they knew this.
right, they knew this. And I might cut this, but I do know who this employee is, and I know what he admitted to doing. And we will report it once I figure out how we can do that legally, because I don't have that document, unfortunately, that I did see with my own 2 eyes, but maybe we'll get it someday.
Tom, this just goes back to like something that I think we want to definitely touch on its own episode, but it's just if these universities can hide shit like in any way, they're going to. Like there's no transparency unless they are literally by law forced to be.
Right. They like pulled some loophole bullshit with how they discipline these students, even though they were technically working for the university at the time. Um, like, so the claim came at the end of the semester, but to my understanding, it happened during the semester while they were working for the university. So how the fuck? It's just yeah, like you said, they will do anything to try to obfuscate the truth and not let these events come to light. And back to that student though, who was, well, former student who is now an employee, still an employee there. Toro is fully aware who this employee is, but stated that it's all good because he hasn't been accused of anything since. That's what she said in an affidavit.
You can't even make that up.
No. And this is the woman who, you know, wanted to be like, "Oh, none of this is my fault, but I won't tolerate anything else while I'm here."
I'm putting a stop to this.
Right. Meanwhile,
Good
she's
fucking job.
right. Meanwhile, she's abusive herself, allegedly. Um, but so with the addition of these two undisclosed cases, that's 12 cases at CCSU within an 8-year time period that we are aware of. Um,
It's not a great batting average.
right. No, that's not good. And CCSU is a small state school in a small state. I think their enrollment is less than 8,000. So, I mean, let's imagine what some of these bigger schools are like. Anyways, I just do want to say, I mean, when we talk about like a culture on campus, what does it say about the culture that Toro is creating when she is alleged to be an abusive person herself? And, you know, after I dropped that story about her traumatizing that poor CCSU employee, someone else emailed me and said, because she was president, I guess, of like the University of Puerto Rico at one point in time when she lived there years ago. And she was known for this behavior. So, and I think there's reports of it even back in Puerto Rico for any Spanish speakers or readers. You could probably go back and find some articles on that. And, CCSU, well, the CSCU Board of Regents still was like, yeah, we'll hire her. She seems like a good candidate.
Mm.
And then, I also have I've had a bunch of current CCSU employees, reaching out to me and telling me that the morale is lower than it's ever been there. And, one wonders why.
Yeah, I mean, this is the exact culture that, it's not inadvertent that she permeates this, it's
Right.
by design, really.
Yeah, it's not a coincidence at all. But that wraps it for CCSU. We're going to be moving on from this campus for a little while, but I'm sure we'll be back. I'm sure we'll be back. That concludes this episode of The Scarlet Project. If you'd like to get in touch with us, our DMs are open on our socials. We are at The Scarlet Pod on Twitter and on TikTok, or you can reach us via email at thescarletpod@gmail.com. All right, everyone, stay safe and look out for each other.